I was commissioned in the United States Navy in 1965. In 1967, I was ordered to the cruiser USS Little Rock CLG-4, which at the time was not the flagship of the Sixth Fleet, but it was bound to be the flagship of the Sixth Fleet in January of 1967. My orders initially were to the Little Rock, homeported in Villefranche-sur-Mer. Between the time I was ordered in August of 1965 and my arrival aboard Little Rock in November of '66, I had some schooling that I had to do in between. I arrived aboard Little Rock in November as the radio officer and the OC division officer on this cruiser, which was bound to become the Sixth Fleet flagship. On my arrival, I discovered that the Springfield would be the last flagship in Villefranche, and that the Little Rock would be based in Gaeta, Italy, to my great disappointment, because my grandfather immigrated from France in 1890. I lived in France as a young boy for 3 years, and my father required all of the children to learn French as a second language. So I thought I would be coming to Villefranche to live for a couple of years. Instead, I had to live in Italy, which was fine. And we visited France a number of times in the Little Rock. Villefranche, Monaco, Antibes, Golfe-Juan, Cannes, but Villefranche was no longer the home port. We were in Gaeta. So that was my first encounter with Villefranche. Well, I thought it was a charming, very, very old village in a beautifully protected harbor. And it was as historical as it was beautiful. So I very much enjoyed my first visit to Villefranche, and the appearance was magnificent. My greatest and fondest memories of France, then as today, is la nourriture, or the cooking, or the cuisine, French cuisine, which I think is probably, as you say in French, sans pareil. But no, France for me is, it's my heritage, as well as a great pleasure to come back to France. The people are very friendly, and particularly the generation before mine, who remember World War II, and who remember the effort that the United States made to help liberate France from the Nazi yoke, are very, very grateful and appreciative of Americans. The younger generation, who don't have those memories, perhaps a little less so. But the population that I encountered in Villefranche at the beginning, and that I continue to encounter, is distinct because they are very appreciative and very hospitable to Americans who visit. While I was in the US Navy, I had an opportunity to command both a destroyer and a cruiser. And when it became time for me to command a destroyer, we had just commissioned 2 years before a ship named after Admiral de Grasse, who was the hero of the Battle of the Virginia Capes and helped secure our independence. I asked for command of that ship, and I was very lucky that I did get command of USS Comte de Grasse. And of course, when I brought that ship to France during the bicentennial year of the Battle of the Virginia Capes and the Battle of Yorktown, the French were very, very welcoming of my ship. The Minister of Defense at the time presented me with a beautiful engraved portrait of Admiral de Grasse and Le Comte de Rochambeau and the Marquis de Lafayette, the three French heroes of our revolution, at a very large ceremony in Cannes in the bicentennial of the Battle of Yorktown. And I was joined by the frigate de Grasse of the French Navy. So 2 ships, both named de Grasse, in Cannes at the same time, and the Minister of Defense presents us a gravure of the Comte de Grasse. After that command, I was ashore in Washington at the White House working for President Reagan at the time, and my time came for command, what we call major command. I was a captain, capitaine de vaisseau in French. and I asked for command of the cruiser Yorktown, because every Comte de Grace should be followed by Yorktown, since the Comte de Grace made victory at Yorktown possible. And I got command of the cruiser Yorktown, and I brought it to Villefranche 5 times in one 6-month deployment to the Mediterranean. And the mayor at the time, Joseph Calderoni, became a great friend, first when I commanded Comte de Grace, and then later when I commanded Yorktown. So, in total, I made 7 different visits to Villefranche in the 5 years that I was in command of 2 ships. And then when I was commanding a carrier battle group, the Saratoga battle group, I brought the Thomas Gates, one of my cruisers in that battle group, to Villefranche for the 4th of July, and Joe Calderoni was still the mayor, and we had another celebration on the 4th of July. So, as you can see, when I commanded U.S. ships named after either a French admiral or our combined U.S.-French victory at Yorktown, the reception we got here was phenomenal. So that's my story about Villefranche while I'm in command of a couple of ships. So it was not our home port, but my crew's favorite port in the Mediterranean, and we took the opportunity that the mayor was so welcoming to come back time after time. So we come back all the time, and I still see friends that I've seen over the years. Valérie Blouin included, and her brother Thierry, of course. And I knew their parents when I was first here in the 60s. And I noticed the plaque on the wall, and of course, looking around the town, that first visit, you could see the plaque that had been left by the Springfield, and there was another plaque left by the USS Salem. So I was struck immediately that these plaques had survived, and that this town was interested in preserving its history, among many things, as the home port for the 6th Fleet flagship for about 13 or 14 years. So I think Villefranche was always a place that an American sailor felt very welcome. And of course, Mame Germaine, the story of that restaurant and her care and her hospitality that she extended to sailors of the 6th Fleet was known throughout the Navy. So a lot of ships come to Villefranche and are familiar with the history of La Mer Germaine. In my day, there were 2 or 3 different types of restaurants, pubs, and bars. There were places that mostly the officers went because the prices were a little higher and the ambiance a little more formal. And then there were places where the chief petty officers went because they were sort of in between in terms of formality and ambiance, and also because the chiefs tended to congregate there. And then finally there were the bars and the pubs where the sailors would go. And it isn't to say that one was off limits to different pay grades, but it's funny how that works, is the sailors tended to go to places where other sailors went, the chiefs went to places where the chiefs went, and then the officers tended to stay in those establishments that the officers frequented. But that was my Navy, that was the old Navy. Today, things are much more democratic. I was the United States Defense Attaché in Paris from 1989 to 1991. And then, and I came here frequently. And I thought maybe that would be my last time in Villefranche as a naval officer. But then I commanded the Saratoga Battle Group, and we came to France. And although my flagship was the Saratoga, a carrier, I had 3 cruisers in my battle group: the Philippine Sea, the USS Biddle, and the USS Thomas S. Gates. And I remember one 4th of July, I took my flag and I moved it from the Saratoga to the Thomas Gates. I embarked in the Thomas Gates, and we came to Villefranche for the 4th of July, which was my last visit. And as I told you, Calderoni arranged a big reception on the ship for the 4th of July. Well, because Villefranche was, in my estimation, one of the most pro-American cities in the Mediterranean, it occurred to me that it would be appropriate to send one of our ships to Villefranche for the 4th of July. The carrier was in Cannes. So I took the cruiser, one of the cruisers that is in the carrier battle group, in fact, an anti-air warfare special ship with a crew of about 300. So I thought it would be wonderful, while the carrier was in Cannes, to put the cruiser in Villefranche on that holiday. And I think the people of Villefranche were grateful that we were there. Well, I'll tell you one little story about when I commanded Yorktown in 1987. We brought the ship to Villefranche maybe the 5th time, that deployment. And one of the things that we did every morning at 8 o'clock in every American ship is we execute colors. Colors is raising the flag. And one of the things that we typically do is we play the Star-Spangled Banner in the morning when we raise the flag. So when I was in Villefranche, being that it's a tight little harbor, I would raise the flag and play the Star-Spangled Banner, followed immediately by the Marseillaise. And so the citizens of Villefranche every morning at 8 o'clock would hear the Star-Spangled Banner followed by the Marseillaise. And they told me, when I was leaving the port, Calderoni told me, he says, this is something the citizens of Villefranche look forward to. I was worried that we were making too much noise at 8 o'clock in the morning. He said, absolutely not. He says, continue that. Every time somebody sees me in the street, they say, voilà le bateau américain, il sonne l'anthème des États-Unis et de la France. And I said, well, if you like me to do that, I'll do it. And I said, is the volume too loud? He said, pas du tout. He said, the volume is just right. Well, I think it's a wonderful tribute to both Franco-American friendship and to the historical relationship between France and the United States Navy. Because I commanded Comte de Grasse, I am very familiar with the contribution of the French Navy to our War of Independence. And I think every time I see a celebration of U.S.-French friendship, and this past 2 days watching the French Navy and the U.S. Navy celebrating together the friendship between this town and the Sixth Fleet, it brings very warm memories to my mind, and I'm very, very pleased to have seen it. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention in passing the enormous contribution of Valérie Blouin, the granddaughter of Mame Germaine, to recognizing the importance of this anniversary of the presence of the U.S. Sixth Fleet in Villefranche-sur-Mer and the friendship that it has generated over many years. I think it is important that we do two things. I think it is important for the next generation of Villefranchois, the children today, to understand that there is a history that is very special in this town. That's important. So whatever you can do to, as you have with the anchor and the plaque that commemorates the presence of the fleet, as well as all the plaques on the escalier in town that celebrate this ship and that ship, it's very important that the citizens of this city, as the generations come and go, understand the relationship that did exist here. I think it's also important for the United States Navy, even though our presence in the Mediterranean is enormously reduced. In my day, we had 50 ships in the Mediterranean. Today, we have 4 or 5. But it's important that even as the fleet has reduced in size, that every now and again, maybe once a year at least, we send a ship of the United States Navy here to rekindle the interest of the people in the presence of the U.S. Navy, and to rekindle in the U.S. Navy the importance of continuing a tradition that their fathers and grandfathers established before them.